Let there be light, and there was light. All right, we're hanging on to the words of the said God, Mother Eve. Of course, Mother Eve, the said God in the Holy Bible of the King James Version. It would be in the other Bibles as well, but just to remind you that we are making reference to King James Version of the Bible because it's a numerical construct, and that numerical construct, of course, if you have any ideas of scriptural knowledge, you would know that the King James Version had made phenomenal impact in our constructs and structures of our world, our thinking, our conditions, and our minds, our schools and our institutions and churches and so much more. So hence why, of course, with the love of numerology as well, which we have developed that love because it has served as a wonderful instrument to understanding the scriptures and unpacking what has really been part of our makeup. So basically, now looking at the scriptures in terms of the story of Job, and this is one I would really like to talk about right now. Of course, I have made reference to Job quite a few times throughout those presentations, but I'm looking at the scriptures now, and I'm seeing basically Job is really perhaps one of the most transformational scriptures we could ever encounter, in the sense of what we see as right, what we see as wrong, and how those things impact on us. You know, about some people would argue a point so much because they have to prove themselves right. They have to be right at everything. And, well, I know about that. Been there, done that. Okay. Basically, it's like you would argue because you know within you that it is structurally right. You would argue, you would exhaust the ears and eyes of people or witnesses with a point. To what point? To the point of death in some cases, where one have to just resign and say, okay, you're right. And that's all what you really want to hear. Yes, you are right. That is the story of Job. Job was an upright man. He was a righteous man. He was a perfect man. Now, the word perfect, for instance, that's another thing we need to look at right here. The word perfect, which equals 10. Oftentimes we think that the word perfect means, well, as if it's, of course, it's implicit, but it's not to say something could be perfect in a sense that it is also serving perfect to do something negative. So you could say the perfect crime or the perfect tool to do a perfect crime that would not really serve someone well. So the word perfect, this is where we tend to think we have bought into certain definitions of words, not taking into consideration the context that they are used. It's like saying our right hand. Is our right hand better than our left hand? I don't think so. It's just that we have been taught, for most of us, we have been conditioned. And I remember being at school that you would get slapped on your hand to ensure that you were using your right hand and not so much your left hand. So this is something that we were born with two hands coming out and thinking, well, of course, they were both perfect. They're still perfect. But now they call this the right, and that because it is the hand that has been conditioned to do so many things in a certain way that is justified or classified as perfect, then it would seem that the right is always perfect. Of course, the word right also equals 8, but that also is all part of the whole construct of course, 8 is the symbol of infinity. Now, it's not to say that if our left hand was conditioned as such and had a numerical value with the word left, or say put an S or behind it and call it lefts or something to that effect, that then that would also be perfect, in that it would be number 8, underline the symbol of infinity. So Job was perfect. Now, what I keep smiling. I have to smile whenever I remember Job, because he was perfectly self-righteous, as far as I really could see with reading the book. He was a self-righteous man. Of course, the self-righteous in the sense that he was under the umbrella of serving God, as far as he could see through his own eyes, as far as his eyes could see, according to God telling Abraham, which is another story. But as far as Job's eyes was capable of seeing then, he was perfect. He fed the poor. He gave to those who were naked. He clothed people. He was honored as well for his he was honored or revered in a sense of he was respected. He was a man of honor. He was a man of high caliber, we could say, because he was respected for his goodness. He was a rich man. He had 3 daughters and 7 sons, and he also had 300,000 cattle and 700. So we see from there as well. This is the thing that with the scriptures, the number 3 and 7 also correlated perfectly with the number of cattle he had and animals he had. So we could see that there is more in numerical values or numerical significance. There is more to the story of Job. But the 2 numbers that really stand out to me is the 3 and 7. Now, just looking at the word perfect, for instance, there's something we're going to do this in a minute. So, basically, he had 3 sons. 3 sons. Now the word for 3 actually equals 11. That's another thing that is important for us to pay attention to. But all those things have very deep messages. So he had 3 sons. Let's do that. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. 7 sons and 3 daughters. Daughter's. Okay, so sons would be here in numerical value. Let's see this. So that would be, son is really 12, and of course that's 12, like I'm thinking of the zodiac signs, 12 hours of the day, 12 the 12 hours, the 12 months of the year, and so we have those 12 tribes of Abraham, of Israel, 12 sons, and we are seeing this here. So with the S here, I always say with the 2 S's here now, it's telling us there is something here. It's telling me that it's like the 2 serpents. And there, in looking at these 2 S's, it's like the 2 serpents of that's in the spinal cord, really. It's like some thoughts are just coming through my mind, which I had not really intended to go through in this, because I want to explain Job. But I'm getting an inclination now. Mother Eve wants me to really explore this symbol of the word sons right there. So Mother Eve is really saying these 2 S's are really the 2 serpents. the two serpents. It's like, okay, let's do this here. Okay, I'm trying to, okay, to get a backward S as well, so that the two serpents, okay. All right, let's have it like this. So Mother Eve is really saying these are the two S's, the two suns here, the two serpents in the spinal cord. Now let's look at the word on, which is in the middle of the word sons. So right here, we have in the middle of the word sons is on, which is 6 and 5. So 6 plus 5, 6 plus 5 equals 11. Excuse me. Of course, the two serpents are in the spinal cord right here. So we could say that this is really 11 right here. So this here, so we could say that this is 11, and the two serpents are the climbing up the spinal cord. Now that would be like two suns or suns right there, because that is really a symbol of where we could say that the light is really being ignited and climbing up the spinal cord, going up to the brain to activate your third eye. So that is one aspect to what I am seeing. The word sons is really signifying here. Now, we could also add the whole numerical value, which would be 11, 12, 13. Now, 13, of course, is the number that I have always gone on about, which is where things get set. It's not the number 8, but it actually also equals the word 8 when we do the numerical value for the word 8. Now, let's do this. EIGHT, and this is 59782. Of course, adding this together, 10, this would be 26 and 31. Now we see 31 is really the mirror image of number 13. So this is like the reflection of number 13 right there in number 8. So would it be fair for us to say that number 13 here is really number 8, is really that which is set? It is the set in the sense of we are talking about even the set God, because we have discovered that there are 14 gods in Genesis of chapter 1. So here it would seem like the set God for me would be 13. Now, it does make sense because I recall that I have done some numerical values of when it is said when God or the said God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And God made man in his own image after his likeness, or in his own image. The number 13 transpires quite a bit there, but that is for another presentation. Now, there's the other thing that it has, and Job had 7 sons. Now that means that Job, I'm feeling that I need to say thank you to Mother Eve right now, because that is not how I had intended doing this presentation, but Mother Eve is now really taking control here and guiding me so beautifully, because I knew that there was some significance to all of this in the chakras and activating the pineal gland, but of course it's going becoming clearer right now. So the 7 here is really telling us that this is 7 chakras. These are the 7 chakras that needs to be activated or cleared for one to have this attain enlightenment and illumination. Yeah, but to have this illumination, one has to have elimination, which is what Job was really needing to examine. So the story of Job, of course, as I say, he had, I think, about 700 or cattles and 3,000. But the numbers of three, of course, when we're talking about numerology, we are still talking about the single digit, which would still be 7 and 3. 7 plus 3 is 10. So, of course, 10 is 1. And, of course, we see how 1 transpires on both sides of the word sons as well. Not only that, we see that 10 had was the number as with the said God, Mother Eve. The number 10 is the first word, equals the first word that Mother Eve uttered when she said, "Let there be light." So we can see that 10 is very symbolic and is so important. It's like that's the 10, that's the number that, of course, as I say, it's perfect. 10, the word perfect, although Job was perfect, he was perfect, or we could also say he was a perfect candidate to having a Kundalini experience. So the word perfect, P-E-R-P, sometimes I just say things in the sense of P-E-R-P, okay, P-E-R-P, perfect, F-E-C-T, okay. All right, so there we are, 7, 5, 9, 6, 5, 3, 2. And if we add this is 10, and this would be 25, 30, 37. So 37 is perfect. 37 is 3 plus 6, 7 is 10. Now, so this is just to show you that, yes, Job was perfect. He had the numbers of sons and daughters together would be perfect, 10 children. And the word 10, this is another thing, T-E-N. If we do this is 2, 5, 5, this would equal 12. So we were talking about 12, of course, 12 hours of the day and 12 months of the year and so on. Now 12 is actually 3. Now we see how 3 is that vibration that is necessary. Now, as I said, the word 10, of course, is 12, and we see it has 3. It has the vibration of 3. Now that is telling us, with all what the numbers, the correlations that we have seen with Job, that 3 is necessary. That's the W, and that's the M. So basically Job has a job. Job's job was really to get his perfect 10 to becoming an M, a 3, a W, and an E, and by that he would be having the perfect flower, because that's the set. This is the set God. Again, we are talking about he would need to reflect his sons right there. So part of the main job here, Job had his job to reflect the perfection in this format, getting to understand and have a conscious awareness of being it, that perfect it, the 8-petal flower. Now, the story of Job, if you've ever read it, is that, of course, as we said, he was a self-righteous man. He knew when he was giving account of his introspection of that. Let's backtrack. The story, of course, I'm talking about a book of the Bible of 42 chapters. Again, 4 plus 2 is 6. So that's the number of man. That is what Job is meant to, just really ensuring that it's 42 chapters, and just not to just to ensure that I've got this correct. Okay, so it is 42 chapters, right? So for 42 chapters, I believe that those numbers are very symbolic. 42 is the number of man in the sense that it equals 6, and there is so much more to 42, but let's just hold on to here. And the number of verses is 17. Now that's, I mean, for the 42nd chapter, it entails 17 verses. I like the way it says the last verse is that, so Job died being old and full of days. Of course, the last word of the Bible, of the chapter here, is days. Now, let's look at the word days. There is just so much with this delicious story, but he was full of days, because of course the word days in the scripture was given for signs and seasons, and that days is a sign that that Job really attained or got to a place of illumination or enlightenment in the end, because of course this is 8 plus 4 is 12 and 1 is 13. 13, that is in correspondence with sons right here, of course, and it would mean that would tell us that Job did get or did attain this number 8 petal. Now, so I have sort of given you the beginning and end of it, but let's get into the middle part of it. So Job had this self-righteous element about him, or air about him, because when he'd go to the cities, people knew him. They stood back and they thought, okay, you could hear people whispering, oh, there he comes, you know, and they would come out to see him, because he was a man who, of course, had a relationship with people that he was of certain stature. It was like he was the man who was in the know. He was wise, and like his friends Eliphaz or well, he had some of his friends. Well, of course, the names, I'll have to practice those for a while to be able to pronounce them. But he had those friends, like, I'll call that one Faz. I think it's Eliphaz, but Faz. And he had those, and they considered themselves men of wisdom. They spoke as though they were really the wise men, because that really transpired in their dialogue. So the story is that God had a bet with Satan that Job would, if God had taken all the wealth of Job and really allow Satan to have his way with Job, Job would eventually curse God and really dishonor God, and of course turn his back on God. And God said, but there's the joke about the thing, and I don't know why people are really taking this story. So I have heard so many different accounts to this story that it makes me wonder whether I am reading the same thing people are reading. God has this bet with Job. This is a bet. Well, call it a bet, but it's a game, because God says to Satan, because there were people who had come on the day of the Lord. There was something with the Lord and the sons of men, and Satan had come with the sons of men, or whoever they were, and Satan was with them. Who was Satan? Satan was one of the guys. It would seem that if he came with them, he was one of them. He was their buddy. Okay. So, and it meant that, you know, he was like another friend. But or a friend that had come to visit again, or he comes and God says, well, what are you doing here now? Or he says, oh, I'm coming back and forth and just walking the earth and seeing what I see and so on. And God says, oh, I see you've got your eyes on my servant Job. And Satan says, well, what can I do with him? You've built a hedge over him. He's all protected. What can I do with him? I can't do anything about that. God says, I'm going to take down that hedge. I'm going to take all this thing. But all I'm saying to you, though, just spare his life. You can do everything else, but just don't kill him. Spare his life. Now, there's the other question. What is life? Okay. Is life just the breath? Or is it the quality of what you do? Or is it your mind? Okay, because there are people walking around and they're dead. We could say that, walking dead people. So life has that's another question. So basically, they have this bet, and of course, so first of all, Job's servant comes and says, I was up the mountain, and and the cattle and everything has just gone, or the house got burned down, and I was the only one got saved to come and tell you the story. And then your sons, they were having a party, and your daughters were there as well, and the whole place got burned down. It was always about fire as well. That's another thing. It got burned down, and there was no one else to come to tell you but myself. I was the only one who got saved. So basically, each time there was something, which I also would like to count the number of calamities that happen, and perhaps they might well be 7 overall. So we know his cattle got destroyed, his daughters got destroyed, his sons got killed, his daughters got killed, and the 700 or whatever it was, and so on. But all those things were taken away from Job in very catastrophic way. And so we see that, of course, by then. And to make matters worse, he started, of course, being stressed. He developed all these boils, and all these boils that seemed like leprosy. The word leprosy was not there, but he had these boils. And of course, he had to be in a shed where they had the cinders, meaning the from the fire, the ashes. And so that would be, this is a very good thing actually for for the boils. And because that was another thing that well, we know it's like ashes, well, like charcoal or whatever it is. So again, that is symbolic, because that would mean that is the wood had burned. It had burned to be ashes. So that again, we are talking about fire. Fire, now the word fire also equals 11. And let's just do this here. F-I-R-E. Again, we'll see 5996. So this is 24, and 24 here, and 5 would be 29. Sorry, 2 plus 9 is 11. So this is where we are seeing about, we talk about 11 again, the 2 ones. We see 11 as in here. So fire, basically, we see that there is a theme of fire in Job's story. And of course, his countenance was on fire too, because he was broken. So there's another word, broken, like Christ broke bread, like Moses broke the commandments. So these are words that we see have very strong significance in the story of Job. So going on with Job's story of there being fire, we will see that all these calamities that he had endured seem to have a correlation with the chakras as well, meaning he would have to, it's like, it was like a sort of detoxification, we could say, was taking place right there. Now, there's the thing, Job's friends, of course, came to visit him, and really, of course, as wise men as they were trying to understand why would Job be going through such calamity if he was really truly a righteous man as they had known him to be, if he was truly just, if he was truly as pure as they had known. Why would he be enduring this? Now, Job, too, of course, it's like his friends are trying to help in whatever way they know how, because they are really no different, him and his friends. But it's like there is an exchange of wit, in the sense of seeing, well, who is wiser. One of the friends would say something like, well, are you sure you have confessed and you did do, because I mean, he's saying that people who have done well and who have fed the poor and who have respected the commandments of God and all those things, they don't suffer like that, you know. And at one time, Job says, well, actually, I have seen people who have done worse, and they seem to die a decent death, and you know, they don't seem to suffer like I do. And another point, he's on to his self-righteous thing, that yes, well, you are talking to me about all this wisdom. I can tell you, this would be Job, I can tell you all what you were saying there. It's not that you are any wiser than I am. So he was on a trail of self-righteous manner, and he was on a trail. He was just on this notion that he had done no wrong. Basically, that was his quality of having this introspection. Not once really that it shows that he was ever grateful for any of that thing that he had. Even if he said, there were times that he would say, well, God giveth and he taketh away. It was God who gave me, and so I won't curse God. But there was not a thing about saying, well, I have now I have an understanding of, truly have an understanding with God, that I need to perhaps shed all. I am now thankful and grateful that I had this experience, all of all these riches that I had, and now I am able to, I had the opportunity to do this. No, he was still like on his self-pitying notion, and there were times where he would, of course, he didn't curse God rightly, but in all essence, if he did curse the womb, this is another thing, the way the scriptures is written, and this is what I'm saying, that I think we sometimes read what we read through the words that we have heard and we have been conditioned by. Because if he cursed the womb, meaning his mother, he cursed the womb that he had come from, then that meant he cursed the Creator. Now that's how I see it. It's like if you curse, if you were to curse one of the royal family, it's like you're cursing the whole royal family. You're cursing, because that is a name, so you get what I am saying. So basically, he said he cursed the day that he was born. He cursed the day he was born. That too, to me, is cursing the Creator. So this story is written in a way that is definitely giving more insight to the essence of one's transfiguration, how or essence of one's introspection, but there is a degree of bias, we could say, with the account of Job, or the conclusion of the account of Job's account overall. So we have to put things in perspective. We need to also see where the writer or has played the game in whatever it is they want us to understand. So, but there is the other thing. There is the beauty of what I felt this whole story of Job was giving, is that, as I say, we see that the word sons here equals 13. We see that the 13 also reflects 8, meaning 8 is where things get set as in the number 8, because 8 is really this symbol of infinity. But we see that 8 is also talking about days here. We also know that in Genesis, which speaks about the 7th day, on God rested on the 7th day. And I think there's also, that is with question mark, but there was an 8th day mentioned in the scriptures as well. So I believe there is the 8th day, on the 8th day, whatever else happened. But that is to say that this 8 is really set, and that set is like all the notion on all the process of Job's story and conclusion is meant. Job is meant to have the job of getting his life story or his life experience in a set that matches the creator, that matches as we see in it's funny as well that I said that it is 42, the 42 chapters, and the last chapter ends on number 17. Now 1 plus 7 is 8. This is another thing I hadn't really taken into consideration as in making the reference to the scriptures. In Genesis of chapter 1 verse 17, this is where the God set was, when it says, and God set the firmament, or something to that effect. But this is where God set really transpired. That is one of the gods. That is one of the gods, and it's in the 17th verse. So 17, when we add 1 plus 7, that equals 8, and as well God also equals 17. 1 plus 7 is 8. So we can see that basically Job's story is really to get into in a set of perfection, or in to be in a new era, which is coinciding with the last, or I just erased the word set as well. So coinciding with the 8th entry, because the said God had given her we could say her contracts, as I keep saying, contracts to the gods, but they were 8 contracts, meaning the last one, or the last entry, where she says, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let us, which is again 31, which is the word 8, EIGHT. Right here, 8 equals 31. The word US, us, equals 31. Let us make man, M-A-K-E, man, in our image, after our likeness. Now, let, as I say, equals, this is 3, 5, 2. Of course, this equals 10. Now, this is where I'm saying the number 10 coincides with the number of sons, or children rather, 7 sons and 3 daughters that Job had. And there we see that the loss of his children here had to be transformed into us. Basically, Job had to go through the transformation of renewing himself, refining himself, letting go of the lower chakras, not just the lower chakras, in fact, detoxing himself, body and mind and spirit. His spirit was broken. That had to be broken. It was the only way that Job could really find, just checking the time. This is the only way that Job could really find himself, because he was so upright in his way. In fact, we're going to have to do another presentation on Job, but I am doing this presentation to show that we can be doing everything that we feel is right, following the 10 commandments, because that's what Job probably did, and he probably did that to perfection. He did it so much to perfection. Here was what Job used to do actually. When his sons and daughters used to go out and have a good time, instead of him rejoicing for them that they were having a good time, no, he used to spend his time burning candles, well, I say candles, offering burnt sacrifices to God, just in case his children had sinned. That's what he used to do. Can you imagine what sort of father he was? Yes, so do join me again, and I hope you get the essence of what I'm saying here. So let there be light in this presentation, and do watch this and join me again for second part on Job. And as I say, I have done other presentations on Job. Hopefully I can link them up so we can see the story of Job, that everyone is saying, oh, you know, when they're in a spot of bother, oh, Job went through so much more. We need to get to the essence of the morale of the story of Job. Let there be light, and there was light.